Well, my name is Ana Valdez, and first of all, I want to thank Claudia for having me and for putting this together. I'm one of the lucky ones that was here from the very beginning, and it's been really amazing to see this group growing and the power of getting together and sharing everything. In my case, information. But thank you, Claudia, again for having me and for doing this. Is that okay if I just grab it? Yes, I'm going to move a little bit more so that you keep it. Keep it more dynamic in because I'm a nerd, so I'm going to give you a lot of data, but I'm going to give you context, which I hope helps. Just for the people that don't know, the Latino Donor Collaborative is a nonprofit. We're a think tank, and the mission is very similar to what everybody is doing here, which is changing the narrative of who Latinos are in America. Because the gap between the perception of who Latinos are and the reality of who Latinos are is very big. So we need to close that gap. So 12 years ago, a bunch of Latino business leaders got together, decided to fund this organization, and decided to create the data. And because they were business people, they decided to use two things. One is, of course, the numbers, and the other one is the business angle, right? So in general, we have a lot of great organizations doing the grassroots thing, which is very important. But at that point, there were very few organizations doing the business side of it, because in a lot of different ways, and I don't have to tell this group this, but we Latinos are not a charity group. We actually are a business group. We're bringing the growth that this country needs, and not only the immigrants, but also people that have been here for 500 years. And so we do two things, and you're going to see it through my presentation, which is one is data, and the other one is the business side. We don't really, and we can use philanthropy, that's great, but we actually are a win-win premise. I love how Claudia started it, which is, the premise is you win and I win. Because when people understand who Latinos are, they stop making decisions on myths of Latinos are takers, and they start realizing that these numbers that we just saw and the numbers that we provide also are saying this is an opportunity. I want to be part of the wave of Latinos. This growth in number is accompanied by a growth in wealth creation. It's accompanied by a growth of graduation. It's accompanied by the growth of these immigrants that may have come here in a disadvantaged position, but are completely focused on bringing a great life to their kids, and therefore these kids are hungry, they are smart, they're bicultural, they're bilingual, and they're creating the wealth that I'm going to show you a little bit that is happening here. So with that, I'm going to speak today about two of our reports. We actually have done 29 reports. Some of them actually we do every year. The two that I'm going to highlight today are two of them. And the reason why we do it, it's a longitudinal study, is that we grow every year. And you would think that if I tell you the Latino GDP in America is boring because every year, how much can it grow? Well, it grows amazingly. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more. So by this year, in our report in 2022, we released it in September, we found that Latinos are contributing with $2.8 trillion to the GDP of America. I'm speaking about Latinos here, Latinos in the United States. The Latinos in Latin America are not even included here. These are the numbers. It's 2.8 trillion that are produced by Latinos in this country for every American to continue being the leader of the world. And so imagine, I'm going to tell you what this 2.8 trillion is. A lot of money. So sometimes it's hard to get it in context. Next, please. So if we Latinos in the United States were an economy, we would be the 5th largest economy in the world. Just visualize that mentally. So the number one economy in the world has inside an economy that would be the 5th largest economy if it was just one community and one country. And guess what? This number, doesn't it sound really different than what you hear that we Latinos are? Than what you see in media, which is like, are we not supposed to all be, narcos because we are actually not incredibly underserved, right? Or are we not supposed to be criminals because, we're not I don't know, we have to have some kind of trouble, right? One of the reports that we do is a poll of opinion. And last year's was our last one. We do our most recent one. We do one every 3 years. And the good news is that from the very first one that we did in 2012, where 67% of Americans thought that Latinos were takers, we went to, in 2021, 2/3 of people in America thought we were contributors. So the good news is people are realizing what we are little by little. But the bad news is that more than half thought that if we have some money, we may be affiliated with some kind of crime. And this is a national poll. And this is the reason why we keep doing the reports that we do. And this is the reason why we all being here is so important, so that we spread the word. I just spoke briefly with Marty. We need to make these numbers national. We need everybody to know that if Latinos were an economy, they would be the 5th largest. And not only that, without us, we actually have become indispensable. And I really want you to use this phrase. Because as you know, first world countries have a common problem, which is low birth rate. Well, this country doesn't have it because of Latinos. So imagine that you have this incredible community that not only is bringing more people, which is absolutely needed for every first world country, but also it's bringing a community that is creating wealth. I don't know if you know this, and some of you know. In the last 10 years, more than 52% of all the new homes were bought by Latinos. We just heard that we're 19% of the population. We're buying 52% of all the new homes. During the pandemic, Latinos, because this is an important thing too, all the focus is always on that 15% that the U.S. Census say are poor in our community. But what about the other 85? And I'm not saying that the 15% is not important, but what about the 85% that is not poor? That is actually, through the pandemic, had enough credit and enough savings that they bought 900,000 new homes through the pandemic. Weren't we all supposed to be dying and poor and completely underserved, and the government had to come and save us? Well, guess what? No. 900,000 new homes were bought by us. I don't know if you know the entrepreneurship number, because, of course, this is our numbers. Please spread the word, and you know it. I love that. So in the last 10 years, 72% of all the new all the new businesses were actually founded by a Latino or Latina. By the way, mostly Latinas. And so imagine that. One of the reports that we do is with Bain Capital, with actually Bain Company, we do a report about access to capital. And unfortunately, and yes, we have to talk also about the bad things, like Claudia said, unfortunately, Latinos don't get the credit that they actually should get. So Bain concluded that if Latinos got not only the credit from banks, but also the credit from venture capital, if they got the credit, they actually would be in par with the white community, getting credit. The GDP would be 2.1 trillion higher. Imagine that if each one of you that is an entrepreneur were getting the credit you deserved, we would be increasing the GDP of the United States. So these are numbers that are good for all Americans. These are not numbers that are Hispanic. These are national numbers that have to do with the leadership at the global level. So, sorry, I go to all my reports because I love them. But, going back to this, so imagine, in this graphic you can see, as I said, that we would be the 5th largest economy if Latinos were a country by themselves. We actually today are creating more wealth and more GDP than India as a country. India is 1.2 billion people. We are 62 million people, we just heard. Imagine, we're creating more GDP. We're creating more GDP than England, than the United Kingdom. Only, of course, the United States, because we're part of it. China, Japan, and Germany are creating more GDP. So all these numbers are very important. Why? Because this is proportion about what we actually deserve. When we talked, and some people talked this morning about how we're not represented, well, we do need it. And when I talk about the business argument, You America need to include us everywhere because we're actually bringing the growth. And if you want to ride that wave, you need to have Latinos. Next. So, and somebody said, talked about growth. Even better news. And we actually talked just 5 seconds ago. We privately talked about how we're growing. Latinos are the youngest community in this country. That means, and the average age is, if from 0 to 100, if we actually were, the age that is more popular within us goes between 11 and 18 years. The non-Latino goes between 47 and 62 years. So my message with this is we haven't even peaked. Most of our people are young. They haven't even incorporated into the workforce. So these numbers that you see here are growth. This is the rate of growth of the top 10 economies in the world. If Latinos were an economy, we would be the third fastest growing. Only China and India would be growing faster in numbers. This is not an economy, in numbers. So if you see, we are the fifth largest economy and we keep growing. So business premise, I'm sorry, but all of you guys know business here. And if I were investing in a company, I would invest in this company, right? So next. This growth is not happening, and I know I have limited time, but this growth is not happening only in the typical cities, right? We know New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Miami, but this growth is happening in the most incredible states, right? And this is actually a migration wave, not an immigration wave. These are people that come from the states that you traditionally think about Latino, and that want new opportunities because now they're settled down. Now they have a business savvy kind of mentality. Now they have savings, and they're moving to places like Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota and North Dakota. And the growth is coming from those states where they actually go and create wealth in states and in towns where there is no growth. So talking about a good business premise and a good investment, this is it. Next. Thank you. This is more about how we're growing. And you probably know that 1 out of every 2 children being born in Los Angeles and in New York are Latinos. Think about that. Think about Procter & Gamble, or think about those companies that have products for kids. I mean, and as you know, those are the two probably the wealthiest cities. So the income is here and the growth is here. So next, we talked about this. Thank you. Next. So this is just, the interesting part is that most of the growth that we just saw from the U.S. Census being presented here came from immigration. But the growth in the last 5 years actually don't come from immigration. Sorry, yes, I have to hurry up. So next, I want to close with something. Another report that we do is the Latinos in Media report. This is the 5th year that we do it also. And why do we do this report? Because we have been talking about narrative. You know who is creating narrative. Narrative is not being created in meetings or even in huge meetings. The narrative is being created by media. We are friends with media, but we need to call them on it. We have a lot of one-on-ones with the CEOs, and we're creating this awareness. But we need you guys to create this awareness and to have this awareness. The summary is that, like Claudia was saying, the growth of diversity has been tremendous in this country, but unfortunately, Latinos have lagged behind. We're still 72% underrepresented in media. And if we want to create a change in narrative, this is it. So please raise your voice, keep these numbers, speak with the same talking points, and let's make sure that we're represented, that all your stories are being told, not only the narco stories being told. And let us help with anything we can with our information.